Hello students and welcome to your e-learning classes of Asansol Northbourne School. I, Diksha Mishra, is going to start the first chapter of your Honeydew Reader book. So the title of the chapter is The Best Christmas Present in the World, written by Michael Morpurgo. So before heading towards the chapter's introduction, let us know first that who is Michael Morpurgo. Alright, what about the author? So Michael Morpurgo, he is a British writer and author of over 100 books, mostly for children, and many of which have given many prizes and awards. He is a famous and award-winning English author and poet who is known best for children's novels, including Private Peaceful, War Horse, and The Amazing Story of Adolphus Tibbs. So students, Michael Morpurgo is best known for his work for children. Alright? So most of his novels or most of his works are for children, and the name of his famous children's novels are Private Peaceful, War Horse, and The Amazing Story of Adolphus Tibbs. These three novels are the famous novels of Michael Morpurgo. Alright, so this was the introduction of the author. Now let's move towards the chapter's introduction. So, the best Christmas present in the world recites a Christmas story in the midst of a war. It reflects upon the longing of the soldiers to reunite with their families. On the other hand, it also throws light upon the longing of the families of these soldiers. One such wife, Connie, who was 100-year-old lady whose husband was a soldier in the British Army, and she misunderstood her visitor to be her husband Jim, and called the so-called reunion the best Christmas present in the world. For her, when she met her husband after so many years, she called that reunion as her best Christmas present in the world. But the person whom she met, he was not her husband. He was her visitor who came to her to return her the last letter of her husband, Jim. So many things, so many incidents have been mentioned in this chapter that we will know when we will start reading it. Alright? So now, one more thing that I want to tell you, that before you read, a section is given on your book. Before you read that section, there an year has been mentioned, 1914. I hope you all have noticed. So what did actually happen in this year? That year was very famous. That year is still now famous in the world of history, because on that year, the First World War, or the Great War, which is also known as the Great War, was started on that year 1940. And why we name it as World War? Because in this war had been fighting between two groups of countries. And these two groups were the Allied powers and the Central powers. So the countries who are in the Allied power, the countries were there like British, France, alright, USA, and later on USA on the 1917, USA also joined this group. On the other hand, the Central power on this group, countries were included like Germany, Austria, Bulgaria, alright, etc. Many more countries were also there. Now, various reasons was there behind this war that you can study in history, that I'm not going into that detail, which that you can study from the Google or from the book also. Alright? Now, let us start reading the chapter. I have given you the introduction that this chapter is during the time of World War. Remember, this chapter is during the time of World War. Alright? And some here I will ask you to underline. Some words I will ask you to underline so that you can imbibe it. Alright? Now, so let us start reading the chapter. I spotted it in a junk shop in Bridport. A roll-top desk. Underline the word junk shop and Bridport and roll-top desk in very first sentence. So junk shop is a type of shop which sells second-hand goods or inexpensive antiques. Alright? And Bridport, it's the name of a market town in the county Dorset or in the state Dorset, which is in England. Alright? A roll-top desk. A picture I have given here. This picture you all can see. It's a roll-top desk. What speciality this roll-top desk has? That this cover, I hope you all can see. This cover you can push it or you can pull it back. Why and how? How that you can, I have explained you that by pulling it back and by pushing it down, you can just use that cover, and this cover is mainly used for writing. So if you want to write something, you can pull it, you can write on it, and then when your writing is finished, at that time you can again push it back. So this is how this roll-top desk works. Alright? Now, I had wanted one, but they were far too expensive. This one was in a bad condition. The roll-top in several pieces. One leg clumsily mended. Underline the word clumsily mended, which means awkwardly mended, or which is awkwardly mended or unprofessionally repaired by someone who is unskillful, by someone who doesn't know how to repair a thing. Alright? Scotch marks, underline the word scotch marks, which means burn marks. Alright? All down one side. It was going for very little money. I thought I could restore it. Over here, the meaning of the word restore is repair. It would be a risk, a challenge, but I had to have it. I paid the man and brought it back to my workroom and the back of the garage. I began work on Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, the meaning of this phrase is the day before the Christmas. The entire day before Christmas or the evening before the Christmas day. Alright? So this para is starting with the narrator of the story, who was presented in the junk shop. And he was presented there to buy a roll-top desk, which I have shown you. Alright? So he was there to buy a roll-top desk. For that he was longing since long. He badly wanted a roll-top desk, but he couldn't get his hands on one because they were too expensive. But this one, which he found on a junk shop, this was very cheap in price. Why it was cheap in price? Because it was damaged. The whole entire table was damaged due to fire, because some scotch marks were there. Scotch marks means some burn marks. So from there we can understand that the table might have caught fire. That is why some scotch marks were presented on the one side of that table. Along with it, one of its leg was clumsily mended. Means one of its leg was broken, and that broken leg was awkwardly, unprofessionally mended. Means somehow that leg was mended by one unskillful person who doesn't know how to repair table. Alright? So due to its condition, it was coming in very cheap price, and as the author had longed for a roll-top desk since long, he wanted it badly. So he decided that he will buy and he will repair it, or he will restore it. Though it was challenging and it was becoming risky for him, but still he thought that no, I will buy and I will repair it. So he paid the man. He paid for that roll-top desk to the shopkeeper, and he took it to his home. He kept it in his storeroom which was at the back of his garage. And he started working on it on the Christmas Eve. Means he started repairing it on the day before Christmas. Alright? Now let us move towards the second para. Okay. So I removed the roll top completely and pulled out the drawers. The veneer had lifted almost everywhere. Veneer, underline the sentence veneer. It's a decorative or a thin layer of plastic or decorative wood on furniture of cheap wood. So the furniture which is made from cheap wood, on that table, a thin layer of plastic, it's a thin layer of plastic or wooden which has been covered on a furniture, which has been covered on the furniture. We can call it Sanmaika also, okay? Sanmaika which we use to decorate the furniture, Sanmaika tables, Sanmaika doors we have at our homes, right? So the veneer, this term is same as Sanmaika, alright? So it looked like water damage to me. Both fire and water had clearly taken their toll on. Underline the meaning, underline the phrase taken their toll on, which means damaged. The last drawer was stuck fast. Again, underline the phrase stuck fast means shut tightly. Over here it is written shut tightly. I tried all I could to raise it out gently. In the end, I used brute force. Means with his full strength, he tried to just take it out. A brute force is a method of accomplishing something, primarily by means of strength, without the use of mechanical aids or thought. So when you put your immense strength on something, at that time we call it brute force. Okay? I struck it sharply. Struck, underline the word struck. Struck is a past tense of the word strike, which means hit forcibly and deliberately with one's hand or a weapon or other implement. I struck it sharply with the side of my fist. Now again underline the word fist, and the drawer flew open to reveal a shallow space. Underline the phrase flew open. The meaning of this phrase I have given in the next slide, which I will show you. Let me just finish the paragraph reading first. To reveal a shallow space. Shallow means not deep. A secret drawer. Underneath a secret drawer, there was something in there. I reached and took out a small black tin box. Sellotaped to the top of it was a piece of lined note paper, and written on it in shaky handwriting, Jim's last letter, received January 25, 1915, underline the date also, to be buried with me when the time comes. I knew as I did it that it was wrong of me to open the box, but curiosity got the better of my scruples. It usually does. Underline the word scruples. Now we will see the meaning of the words, of the following words: fist, flew open, shallow, and scruples. In the next slide. So fist, a person's hand when the fingers are bent in towards the palm and held there tightly, typically in order to strike a blow or grasp something. Alright? In order to hit something, when we bend our fingers towards our palm in order to hit something, in order to punch something. Okay? Flew open, come out suddenly. Shallow, not deep. Scruples, it's a feeling that make you stop or make you hesitate to do something wrong. Okay? So let us go towards the explanation of the para. So in this para, now when the author had brought the table at his home, he started working on it. He started repairing it. So while repairing that table, he found that he was taking out the drawers, okay? And then he found that the entire veneer, the entire decorative wood, the thin layer of decorative wood was coming out from the furniture. From the table it was coming out. Alright? Then the author understood that water had done the damage. But later on he found not only water, fire and water together, they had done enough damage to that table. How fire and water had done enough damage to that table? Because in the first para, I had told you that there was some scorch marks on one side of the table. Alright? Remember? I had told you? Yes. On that, the scorch marks, how the scorch marks appeared there? Because from scorch marks itself, we can understand that the table might have caught fire and might have burned in fire. Alright? So when the table had caught fire, at that time, whoever was presented at that time, he must have thrown some water on it in order to extinguish the fire, in order to put off the fire. Alright, so together water and fire had done the damage to that table. Because whenever you throw water on a furniture, the furniture will start removing from its joint part. Okay, it will start shifting from its joint part. Now, you open, I have told you. Okay, so at that time the author understood that okay, not only water, fire and water both, they had damaged the table. And when he was taking out all the drawers from the table, he found that the last drawer was not coming out because it was shut tightly. It was closed tightly. Alright. So it was not coming out. First he tried with a little pace first he tried it gently to come it out, to take it out, but it didn't work. So when it did not work, he put his immense force onto that table. He hit the table, he struck the table with his fist, and then the drawer suddenly came out. And when the drawer came out, he found a little deep space under the drawer. That seemed to the author that this space is secret drawer. That space is secret. And on that place, a black colored tin box was kept secretively. Alright? So when he take out the tin box from there, he found that in a lined paper, in one lined paper, it seemed to him that it's a note which was stuck on that tin box. And that note said that Jim's last letter. From this phrase we can understand that within that black colored tin box there may be a letter. Might be a letter is kept inside that tin box. So the note said that Jim's last letter. The letter was received on January 25, 1915, and the same letter, it should be buried with me when the time will come, or when the time comes. And the handwriting, how that note was written, that handwriting was little shaky. So from that shaky handwriting phrase, we can understand that whoever had written that note, he must be an old person. That is why his hands were shaking while writing that note. Alright? Now, as I have told you that note said that the note said that it was the Jim's last letter, it should be buried with me when the time will come. When at that time author had a feeling that he should not do so. Do what? He should not open someone's thing which is kept secretively somewhere. But the author was so curious that he couldn't stop himself in doing such thing, in doing so. So his curiosity, first his scruples, his feelings stopped him to do so. He knew that he is doing wrong. He is opening someone else's property. He is using someone else's property. people to read the letter, what is written inside, what is kept inside, why it is kept secretly. So all these questions are crawling over his mind, and he was curious that what is kept over there, what is written on that letter. That is why at the end he will find that what he did in the next para. Okay. Inside the box there was an envelope. The address read, Mrs. Jim McPherson, Copper Beaches, Bridport, Dorset. I took out the letter and unfolded it, and with pencil I dated at the top December 26, 1914. So, first his feelings had stopped him not to open someone else's letter, but he was helpless at that time. His curiosity was forcing him that find out what is kept inside, why it is kept secretively. So that is why he opened that tin box. He found an envelope there. Then when he opened that envelope, he found a letter kept inside, and then he unfolded the letter. He opened that letter in order to read it. So when he unfolded it, when he opened that letter, he found that at top of the letter with a pencil it was written December 26, 1940. So from this date we can understand that this letter was written on December 26, 1914, but the letter was received 1 month after of it on January 25 in 1950. So don't you think 1914 and 1915, this year is quite similar to us? Don't you think? That year I have mentioned you while giving the introduction of the chapter that what did actually happen in 1914. Alright, why this 1914 is mentioned in this 1914, this year is important in this chapter, because from the date December 26, 1914 itself we can understand that whoever had written this letter, he had written this letter at the time of war. And let me tell you one more thing, that this letter belongs to Coney, which I have also talked about whom I have also told you that who was Coney. And the same letter was written by her husband Jim McPherson. Alright, and that letter was written by Jim McPherson during the war on December 26, 1914. At that time war was going on. Alright. And the same letter had been received after 1 month of it on January 25, 1915 by his wife Coney McPherson. So what did we learn here? That the letter which the narrator had unfolded, that letter was written by Jim McPherson for his wife Coney McPherson, and the letter was written on December 26, 1914 during the World War, and it was written on the midst of a war, and that the same letter had been received by his wife on January 25, 1915. Till now, I hope everyone is clear with this, everyone has understood the topic, understood the concept very well. Okay, the second unit of this chapter, we will discuss it on the next class. Till then, bye.